This conference will now be recorded.
Right, let's start today's session. So in the last session, we were discuss about how to create class and how to create object for the class, how to get the student details or employee details using methods or constructors, and how to get a description about class we discuss. Now, in this session, I'm going to discuss, we used it in the last session like creating class, and inside the class we used it like a constructor. No? So for example, here you can see this is the class, and inside the class we use constructor like def underscore underscore init, and here it is self. Self is the variable here. So what is self variable? So self is the default variable which is always pointing to the current object, which is always pointing to the current object. Here, what is self variable in the sense? Self is default variable, default variable, which is always, which is always pointing to the current object, pointing to the current object. We can say that. Okay, it's a default variable which is always pointing to the current object. So the self variable is similarly this keyword in Java or .NET. So people will use this is a keyword. So in Java and .NET to access current class members, but here in Python we use self. Self is a default variable which is always pointing to the current object. So by using self variable, what we can do in the sense, by using self variable, by using self variable, we can access, we can access, we can access instance variables. We can access instance variables and instance methods. Instance variables and instance methods. What is instance variables and instance method? I'll discuss. So you can use by using self variable, we can access instance variables and instance methods, instance variables and instance method. Okay. So another important thing is here where we can use self variable actual here. First one, self should be self variable. Self should be self should be first parameter, first parameter, first parameter inside the constructor. Self should be first parameter inside the constructor, that is underscore underscore init underscore underscore. Then here compulsory is required what? Self. This is constructor. Self should be first parameter inside the constructor. So def underscore underscore init. Init is a constructor. What is exactly constructor? I'll explain now. Next, another thing is self should be, self should be first parameter. Self should be first parameter inside the instance. Inside the instance. Self should be first parameter inside instance method. Inside instance method. That means def. Suppose I'm using method called display method, display method, and here self should be first parameter of instance method also, like this. So self should be first parameter inside the constructor, and self should be first parameter inside the instance method. Like this is instance method, we can say display of self. Okay, so this is self variable. Self is the default variable which is always pointing to the current object. It's very similar to this keyword in Java or .NET, and by using self variable we can access instance variables and instance methods, instance variables and instance method. So self should be first parameter inside the constructor, like this first parameter, and self should be first parameter inside the instance methods, that is instance method is display method. So self is the first parameter. Okay, now coming to the point, what is constructor actually here? So always in Python object oriented programming, constructor is what? Underscore underscore init actually, underscore underscore init. Okay, so constructor, constructor. So what is constructor here? Constructor is a special method in Python. Constructor is a special method, special method in Python. Constructor is a special method in Python. Yes, it is a special method. So what is the use of constructor? I will tell you. First, constructor is a special method in Python, but the name of the constructor is always what? Underscore underscore in it. The name of the constructor, the name of the constructor, the name of the constructor should be, the name of the constructor should be, yes. So the name of the constructor should be underscore underscore init underscore underscore then self. It is constructor name always. Constructor will be execute automatically at the time of object creation. Constructor will execute at the time of object creation. Object creation. Yes, when we create object, as soon as when we create object to the class, then who will invoke it automatically, in the sense constructor will invoke it automatically. Same rule in other language also. Will execute at the time of object creation. The main purpose of constructor is, the main purpose of constructor is declaring the variables and initialize the instance variable. Declaring and initialize the data to the variables. Purpose of the constructor is what? Whatever you want, you can declare the variable and initialize that data to the variable. That is the main purpose of constructor. So whenever we create object for the class, automatically constructor is invoked. When constructor is invoked, then automatically inside the constructor, whatever we initialization and whatever we declare, that data will be called. So per object constructor will be execute only once. Suppose we have created student class and S1, S2, S3, three number of objects are there. So per object constructor will be execute only once, I'm saying here. So per object constructor will execute only once, I'm saying. Per object constructor will execute only once. Constructor can take at least one argument, that is what self actually here. As I told, inside the constructor, compulsory first parameter should be what? Self. Self should be first parameter inside the constructor. Constructor will take at least one argument, that is compulsory self only. Okay. So what is the constructor? In the last session only we discussed here. So this is constructor actually. So def underscore underscore init. So constructor is used to initialize the data to the variables, like here SNO, student name, SName, student name, address, student address. So here I would like to declaring the variable and initialization. So self dot SNO equals to SNO, then self dot SName equals to SName, self dot SName equals to SName. Next self dot address equals to address. So this is, so constructor. Now I would like to access the constructor data. How it is possible, so we have to create object for class. So S1 equals to student is a class. We have to supply compulsory 101 SNO student number, S name, and S address. S address means HYD. For one constructor it will be one object creation, per object constructor will invoke only once. So per object constructor will execute only once. So this is the constructor details. Actually it's a special method in Python. The name of the constructor should be underscore underscore init. Self is the first parameter. Constructor will execute or invoked as soon as when we create object for the class. The main purpose of constructor is declaring and initializing data to the variables. Per object constructor will execute only once. Okay. So let's try to this the constructor data I want to display, but there is no method actually. So you can create any number of objects to the class like 102, and I'm using another name like this. So how to print constructor data without method? So print s1 dot underscore underscore dictionary, print s2 dot underscore underscore dictionary. If you want, you can take method also, no matter. So it's going to be display constructor details, what we can say constructor data clearly available. So this is constructor, and what we have in the last session also we discussed, but exactly constructor always should be underscore underscore in it. And what is here we can able to print method through also. Method through in the sense what here def display, then this is method. So I want to print directly one by one self dot snO, no need to give description, self dot sname, self dot sname, self dot s address, like this, self dot s address. So it is what method actually. So if you have method, then how to print a method through? So just s1 dot display method you have to call, then s2 dot display method you have to call, display method. So with the method it's possible. So when we call the method, so it's going to be display like this: 101 SAIHYD for object 1 reference, and 102 Durga SR for object 2 reference. So this is what method actually. This is method, and this is what constructor actually. Here constructor. So what is the difference between method and constructor? Method means name of the method can be of any name. Yes, this method name can be of any name. Display or any name, my method or sample method, demo method, any name you can give this. But constructor name should be always underscore underscore in it only. Constructor name should be always underscore underscore in it. Method name can be of any name, but constructor name should be always underscore underscore in it. Next, method will be execute if we call that method. Yes, here method is there. When it will execute? Whenever we call that method. Here I'm calling the method 2 times, so 2 times it's going to execute. Yes or no? Constructor will execute automatically at the time of object creation. Yes, whenever we create object, constructor will invoke automatically, constructor will execute automatically. Per object, method can called any number of times. Yes, we can call any number of time per object. S2 dot display also we can call, s1 dot display also we can call, like this any number of times we can able to call. That many times method is going to be display like this. Per object, method can be called any number of times. Per object, constructor will be execute only once. One object is there, first time constructor will execute only once. Second object is there, again constructor will execute only once, like this only. Okay, constructor will execute only once per object. And inside method we can write what generally logic code, business logic code. If you want to display business objects or employee details or something, you want if I want to display something, student details or employee details like this, we can write that business logic methods inside the method. But inside constructor we will declare and initialize the variables. Inside constructor, what code generally we can use? We will declare and initialize the variable. That data we can able to declare. So this is the difference between and constructor and method. Okay, so constructor method. So self is the default variable. Self is the default variable, and constructor should be underscore underscore in it. Okay, and s1 is what actually here? Object reference variable. So this is object reference variable. You can say, what is object reference variable? The variable which is used to refer an object is called object reference. S1 is going to be refer an object. So that's what it is, an object reference variable. We can say that S1. Okay. So this is the constructor and self variable, and difference between method and constructor. What exactly method will do what and constructor will do what. Now we will discuss in the object oriented first mainly types of variables in object oriented programming class. Okay, in one class, in object oriented, in one class, what kind of variables we can able to declare? Okay, so types of variables types of variables in Python class. We can declare three types of variables actually. First is instance variables. Instance variables instance variables This is called object level variables also, we can say. Yes, instance means who will instance object. So object level variables also we can call it as. Next, static variables. Static variables. Static variables. These variables are called what variables? Class level variables. Class level variables. Next, local variables. Local variables. Local variables. Local variables. These variables are called method level variables. We can say that. Method level variables. So these are the different types of variables are there in Python class. Instance variables, that is object level variables. Static variables, that is class level variables. Next, local variable, that is method level variables. Now we will discuss about instance variables now. So what is instance variable? It's simple. If the value of the variable is varied from object to object, if the value of the variable, if the value of the variable is varied from object to object, is varied from object to object, then then such type of such type of such type of variables are called such type of variables are called instance variables. We can say that instance variables. So what is this meaning actually? If the value of the variable is varied from, if the value of the variable is varied from object to object, then such type of variables are called what? Instance variables, we can say that. Sir, for example, in this case, S1 is I have created. S1 is one of the object. S2 is one of the object. So these variables are different and these variables are different. No matter, even though if you include 101 psi HYD also, but these variables are varied. These variables are varied. Why it is varied from object to object? Because the variables which are varied from object to object is called instance variables. Why? Because in instance variables, every object will maintain separate copy of instance variable. Separate copy. This one will be separate copy. This one will be separate copy. So how many number of objects we create and that many instance variables copy will be created. That's what I'm saying, a separate copy. No. So if the value of the variable is varied from object to object, one object it will maintain separate copy, another object will maintain separate copy, then such type of variables are called what? Instance variables, we can say that. And for every object a separate copy of instance variables will be created. This is also important for every object. So will it have performance? No issues, no performance issues. Why? Because any number of objects we can able to create, it won't perform issues. Because I want to display some different employee details, then we have to create obviously multiple objects compulsory. No matter any number of objects we can create. That is what object oriented actually. As per our requirement, have to create, keep on. For every object, for every object, for every object, for every object, a separate copy of instance variables will be created. For every object, a separate copy of instance variables will be create will be created. For every object, a separate copy of instance variables will be created. Okay, so this is important. Instance variables means object level variables. If the variable, if the value of the variable is varied from object to object, then such type of variables are called instance variables. For every object, a separate copy of instance variables will be created. And next, where we can declare instance variables, where we can declare instance instance variables, where we can declare instance variables. Okay, first way is inside constructor we can declare. Yes, inside constructor we can declare by using self variable, by using self variable. Next, where we can declare inside instance method by using self variable. Inside instance method by using self variable. Inside instance method by using self variable. Next, outside of the class by using object reference variable. Outside of the class, outside of the class by using object reference variable, object reference variable. Yes. So these are the three ways we can declare instance variables. Inside the constructor, we can declare. Inside the instance method, we can declare. Outside of the class, also we can declare. But how to declare? Inside constructor by using self variable, it's possible. Inside instance method by using self variable is possible. But whenever you want to declare instance variable outside of the class completely, how it is possible? Compulsory we have to use object reference variable. Let's see practical implementation, how it is possible to create inside instance method, all those things. For example, here my class is there, class name is called test. Test is what class? So def underscore underscore init, it's a constructor. It's a constructor. So inside the what we can say self EID, employee ID, for example 101, self dot ename employee name, self dot e address, self dot e address, that is what HYD. So this is what instance variables we are declaring inside the constructor by using what variable? Self variable. So this is what instance variable within the constructor we can declare by using self variable. And how to create how to print these? So directly we can able to create object for t equal to test is a class. Then next what we are doing, print t dot underscore underscore dictionary. Yes, we know that how to display. So this is about instance variables. Inside the constructor we declare by using self variable. Inside instance method also we can able to declare. So how it is possible? Let's try to do. Suppose inside the constructor means this one, no? Def underscore underscore init and self dot, for example self dot a equals to 10, self dot b equals to 20. This is inside the constructor by using self variable. Inside the instance method means instance method is this one m1. M1 is a method. Inside instance method by using self variable also we can declare, that is what 30, self dot c. This is also instance variable. So there are three different ways. Inside constructor by using self variable. This is inside constructor by using self variable we declare instance variables. Next, inside instance method by using self variable. Instance method means this is m1 method is instance method. What is instance method? I'll discuss clearly later. Types of methods are there. This is instance method. Inside instance method we're using self variable. Okay. Then next t equals to test is a class. T dot m1 I am going to call the m1. Then again I am trying to print what? T dot underscore underscore dictionary. Yes. So inside constructor by using self variable, inside instance method by using self variable, we are calling method, and this dictionary will have that what 10, 20, 30 clearly. So this is about instance variables here. Two ways to declare. So I want to declare outside of the class by using object reference variable is possible. So if you want to declare inside the class, anywhere inside the method, inside the constructor, you have to use self variable. But once you want to declare the instance variables outside of the class, you have to use what? Object reference variable. How to use object reference variable in outside the class? Outside the class means where? So for example, after creating object, after calling the method, then here I want to declare one variable called t dot d equals to 40. I want to do that. So this is what object reference variable. T is an object reference variable. The variable which is used to refer an object is called object reference variable. Here we are trying to declare instance variable outside of the class, no? So compulsory object reference variable is required. Here self is not work out. So now let's try to run this. We got 8 and B20, C30, D40 like this one. Okay. So these many ways to declare instance variables actually here. So within the constructor, we can use self variable. Within the instance method, we can use self variable, and outside of the class by using object reference variable, we can say that. Okay. So next, how to access instance variables? These are the variables, only instance variables so far we discussed, no? So how to access instance variable here? So let's try to do that. Access how to access instance variables. How to access instance variables. So we can access instance variables within the class by using self variable. Simple. we can we can access instance variables, instance variables, instance variables within the class by using self. We can access instance variables within the class by using self, and outside of the class and outside of the class by using object reference variable. Object reference variable, we can say that outside of the class by using object reference variable. Okay, so how to access instance variable? We can access instance variables within the class by using self variable, outside of the class by using object reference variable. For example, let us consider here it is instance method m1, and if you want access within the class directly, you can able to print also, no matter, print self dot a. Okay, then print self dot b. Like this we can able to print where I declare inside the constructor, but where I can access inside the class only. No, inside this method is belongs to class only. No, inside method we can able to access instance variable by using self. How to access? Previously what I discussed, where we can declare, how to declare, but now this time how to access instance variables. We can access instance variable within the class by using self, and outside of the class by using object reference variable. Within the class I am using what, self dot a, self dot b. I'm able to access like this, but outside of the class if you want to access, how it is possible, let's try to do that. First we have to create object for test class. T dot m1 method I'm using. T dot m1 method is what, self dot a print, it will be print. But if you want to you can able to print like this only, print 1020, because of these statements. So as soon as when we call the method will be execute. Inside the method, what I am accessing, instance variables, self through I am accessing. But now these variables I want access in outside of the class. How it is possible? T dot a, so compulsory object reference variable. Now T dot b, I want access outside of the class by using object reference variable. So T is object reference variable. Outside of the class I have accessed, but inside of the class you want access, we use what, self variable. So this is what accessing instance variables. Within the class you are trying to access, we have to use self. Outside of the class you are trying to access, you have to use object reference variable, like this is only. Okay, now another important thing I want to tell you, as I told you that for every object a separate copy of instance variables will be created or not. Yes, it's possible. For every object a separate copy of instance variables will be created. Instance variables will be created separate copy. Separate copy in the sense t1 t2, suppose two objects. T1 will maintain separate copy of instance variable, T2 will maintain a separate copy of instance variables. Then if you delete or modify, if you delete or change any one of the variable of instance copy, that will not affect or that will not be deleted in another copy. Okay, so for example you can see first I will show you every object a separate copy of instance variables will be created. No, so how to delete instance variable from the object. Instance variable from object. How to delete instance variable from object? Within the class we can delete instance variable. Within the class we can delete instance variables like, so del keyword we have to use. Del is a del. Then after that object reference variable, object reference variable we can use outside of the class, not within the class. Okay, that's right. Now you can see within the class we can delete instance variables like del self dot variable name, Next, from outside of the class, from outside of the class we can delete from outside of the class, we can delete instance variables. Like how it is possible from outside of the class. Compulsory we use del keyword. Then after that object reference is required. Object reference dot variable name. So how to delete instance variable from object means two ways. Within the class, we can delete instance variables like del is a keyword, self dot variable name. Outside of the class, we can delete instance variable del object reference dot variable name. But as you know that for every object, a separate copy of instance variables will be created. One copy data, if you delete, then other copy will not be affected. So let's try with practical implementation here. So class test, it's my class name. Then after that def underscore underscore init, then self dot a equals to 10, self dot b equals to 20, self dot c equals to 30. Some variables I want to declare. C equals to 30, self dot d equals to 40. How many variables are there? 4. Okay, now within the class I want to delete one of the variable data, self dot m1. Then how to delete del within the class? Self dot d equals to 40. Self dot d, that's it, only d. So next t equals to test object, text class, test class. After that, how to print this? So print t dot underscore underscore dictionary. So here what happened? Instance variables I created inside the constructor. So this is inside the constructor. 4 instance variables I created. I deleted one of the instance variable in where? Inside the class only, method through. So del self dot d. Okay, print t equal to test. So it's going to be deleted. We have only one object, a value 10, b value 20, c value 30, d value 40. Okay, so here we are not, deletion is not affecting here. Why it's not affecting here? But are you call any method, m1 method? No. So when we call the method, then it will affect. After method calling, it will be delete one variable like d variable. So let's try to see that. After calling m1 method, again I'm printing dictionary, a value 10, b value 20, c value 30, d value 40. But when we call this method, it will be deleted inside the class only. I'm using this method. So that's what inside the class, if you want to delete instance variables, we use del space self dot d. So here d is not there here. If you are trying to delete outside of the class, how it is possible? Outside of the class means here del object reference variable t dot c. I want to delete what? C variable. Now print underscore underscore dictionary. Now this time in the third result there is no c, only a and b is there available. So if you want to delete the instance variable inside the class, we can use del space self dot d. And if you want to delete instance variable outside of the class, we use what? Del space object reference variable dot c. And what I'm saying, the instance variables which are deleted from one object will not be deleted from other objects. I'm saying the instance variables which are deleted from one object will not be deleted from other objects. I'm saying why? Because a separate copy will be maintained or not? Yes, a separate copy will be maintained. So let's try to do that here. So let's remove this method. So the instance variables which are deleted from one object, it will not be affected on other object, because of every object a separate copy will be maintained. For example, t1 equals to test, t1 equal to test here, t1 equal to test, it's my class. T2 equals to another object I'm trying to create. Two objects are there, no? Two objects are there, instance variables are 4. Then I'm trying to do del outside of the class we are trying to delete t1 dot a. From where I deleted t1 dot a. So now you can say t1 dot underscore underscore dictionary, then print t2 dot underscore underscore dictionary. T1 values I have deleted one value. It is only affected on one copy of T1 copy, but T2 copy will not be deleted. A value, it's going to be similarly A and B and C, D. And T1 only we deleted, no? So it will affect only that copy only. So what you understand here, any one of the copy any one of the object copy is going to delete instance variables, that will not be affected here. The instance variables which are deleted from one object will not be deleted from other object, because a separate copy of the instance variables will be created for every object. And similarly, if you change the values of instance variable, for example, you do modification of instance variables of one object, then those changes will not be affected to the remaining objects. Those changes also will not be affected into the remaining object. For example, t1 dot t1 dot a equals to some 33 I'm affecting. So 33 will affect on t1 copy, t2 copy not. So if you change the values of instance variables of object, then those changes will not be affected to the remaining objects, because for every object we have separate copy of instance variables are available. For example, here t1 dot a equals to, so t1 dot a equals to 33 I'm using. But here, is this affected in t2? No, it's not affected in t2. Here it is only affected on t1. Okay, t2 is copy same, old data only will be there. So this is about different types of ways we can able to declare instance variable. So next, static variables are there, that is class level variables, that I will discuss in tomorrow session. Okay, so this is about instance variables completely, and we'll see tomorrow static variables and what we can say other variables like local variables, method level variables we'll discuss. Okay.